welcome to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. I want to say hello to everybody, and today we have some interesting stuff to talk about. And I was talking earlier with my buddy Jeff Lighty Jr. from Ball Sports, and Jeff brought it to my attention that there was a guy named Nick Cannon on the Breakfast Club today, and Nick apparently has a lot of kids. And I thought that was an interesting thing to kind of talk about, not from a judgmental standpoint, but just from a practical standpoint. So without further ado, I'd like to ask my friend Jeff, how you doing today, man?
I'm pretty good, Doc. How about yourself?
Doing good, doing good. I hit that mute button for a second because I heard a little bit of an echo. But yeah. And I want to also say hello to everybody. Put your B1 in the chat. Let us know if you're from the B1 family. B1 means we're Black first. It means we put our community at the top of our priority list. B1 means we understand we must be one to be successful. B1 also means that B1 children, our children, are going to lead the world in financial literacy, economic intelligence, and everything in between. So if you agree with that philosophy, if you agree with those objectives, put a hashtag B and the number one in the chat. Use that hashtag all over the internet so we can have B1 conversations everywhere. So hello to Charlene and Cheryl and Nasir and James Dyson and Robert Wright. How you doing? All right, so let's get it cracking. So Jeff, you told me that Nick Cannon is a dude that apparently is very fertile, and he's proven it. What's going on with that?
So like you said, Nick Cannon is someone who is the concept of marriage and being with one person and having only children by one person is something that's like doesn't make sense to him, is the way he kind of explained it today on the Breakfast Club. And so over the last year, since 2020, he's given birth to 4 children, or he's conceived 4 children, or put babies in a couple different women to have 4 children over the last calendar year. Now, it's interesting because, like I said, his concept of marriage and being with one person and doing all of this, and he says that, he's able to manage his time perfectly. He says the women are all okay. They all know his situation before they get into a situation with him. They understand what's going on. So nothing's a secret. And he puts it all out there. And then obviously, because he's a public figure, the media picks it up very fast. So it's like very interesting how he like kind of goes about this. And he says, hey, if you ask any of my baby mamas or whoever, I make all my kids, basketball practices and cheerleading events and all these different kinds of competitions. I don't miss any of that. But at the same time, he still maintains his different businesses and being the host of Wild and Out and all that stuff. So I don't know if all the kids live in the same city or whatever, but he seems to be making it work, or at least from the outside looking in, the way he's putting it out there.
Okay, give me a yes or no in the chat. How many of you knew about this before we came into this conversation? How many of you were aware of how many kids Nick had and stuff like that? I want to just start off by saying that I don't think I'm not really here to judge it. I don't really give a shit about what another man does to it, as far as kids and all that. I mean, that's his choice, right? I chose to get married. But then again, when I was Nick's age, I chose not to be married, right? When I was Nick's age, I'm a little older than Nick. And when I was Nick's age, marriage wasn't really for me. It became more for me as I got to a different stage. So I don't judge anybody that chooses not to get married, because I think it all comes with pros and cons. But one of the things that's really interesting, man, is I want to ask you. So you said that Nick made 2 interesting things that got your attention. One was he explained kind of the situation with the kids, but then he also had that conversation about marriage and marriage kind of being a European sort of thing. Is that accurate? Or what
They went down basically how marriage it stems from someone giving away their daughter, right, in exchange for land. Right. That's at least the way that was his explanation, was that, marriage is a European concept that comes from when a father would give up his daughter to a man in exchange for land. Now, obviously, we've seen movie portrayals, and those who've read have seen different kind of things like that. But to me, I think that's the kind of the wrong way to look at it in today's modern terms, right? Like, obviously everything from the past doesn't translate to 2021, right? So what we talk about on this platform and in other conversations is that we're not marrying in exchange for getting something from somebody. You get into marriage, or you get into stronghold relationships with good women to build and establish wealth. And a lot of times it's a wealth builder. And for Nick Cannon, he seemed to have been done all right, right? Like, it's not like he's hurting for money or anything, but this can be detriment to his wealth building that he's come up with, as far as having all these baby mamas and not deciding to be married. But I also think in one case, now this is just me, I do not know Nick Cannon, I do not know anybody that knows Nick Cannon, but I think Nick Cannon might have got heartbroken, right? Like, just think about it. Nick Cannon was married. He was married to Mariah Carey, an icon, right, in the music industry. So he might have gotten his heart broken, and I think he was pretty young when they got married, and she was a lot older from what I understand. And he might have gotten heartbroken and then wised up, because if you watch any of his Breakfast Club interview, I mean, he's a smart brother. He's a smart dude. He's not a dummy, right? And he's very careful with his words, because we know his words got him in trouble before. So I think that this could also be like a, man, I got my heart broke and marriage ain't for me no more. So now I'm going to just, be the fruit of my own labor and go out here and spread and be plentiful, I think, as the Bible said once.
Okay, so I want to ask everybody, I'm going to do a quick straw poll. When you hear Nick's explanation for why, for his objections to marriage and his objections to, what he considers to be the constraints of marriage, how many of you can understand where he's coming from? Give me a yes or no if you think that give me a yes if you think that what he's saying does make sense. Give me a no if you think that it does not. If it makes no sense at all to you, give me a no. And I really just asked that question because what you guys think matters more than what I think. And I kind of look at it like this. When I was raised, Jeff, my parents never really gave me clear yes or no answers to anything. They never told me this is what you definitely do and don't want to do. They sometimes would do that, but most of the time it was like one of those things where it's like, well, it depends. And it was really a matter of just knowing what it is. It's like with relationships, if you say, is marriage better than a one night stand? Well, marriage can work if you know what it is. Like if you're entering a relationship expecting marriage and that's what you get, then that's a good thing. But if you enter a relationship expecting marriage and you get a one night stand, then you're going to be disappointed, right? Vice versa, right? So I think it's like a matter of knowing what it is and knowing what the pros and the cons are. So I was really intrigued with what Nick had to say, because I've heard a lot of people challenge, what marriage should and should not mean. And I know that, since it's become an industry to kind of talk about, my marriage to Alicia, which I totally welcome that, because it gives us opportunities to talk about it. I've never been a person that has ever felt that everybody had to do what I chose to do. I've never been a person who says, oh, everybody should get married because I got married. I'm a person who says I chose to get married and I'm proud of it. All right. Because I've chosen to focus on the pros of being married. I like to know where my seed is located. I don't want babies splattered all over the place. I got friends, man. I had friends from college who literally had kids coming up on their doorstep 20 years later talking about, you're my daddy. And to me, that's insanity, because, when that happens, you're hurting other people when you do that. You got just kids out here just all fucked up, mentally disturbed, feelings are hurt because their daddy wasn't responsible about where he planted his seed. Now, I'm not saying Nick's in that category at all. I don't know if did I tell you last month I talked to Nick's father? Did I tell you that?
No, you didn't tell me. I read it on your Instagram, but we didn't talk about that. No.
Yeah, I talked to Nick's dad for about an hour, and he did a lot of the talking. He talks a lot, but he's very smart man, and he cares a lot about Black people. And I could tell he comes from a smart family. Like, so it helped me understand, like the Nick's not a dumb guy, because his father's not a dumb guy, and I get a sense that that he's not going to do things without thinking them through, and I can totally understand and get some of that, because I think that for men we feel like, okay, I got these women. Having lots of women feeds your ego. That's one thing. And then also it feels like freedom, right? And maybe for Nick it does. I don't know how he feels with it. But also what's interesting is that that there's a dark side to everything. There's a bright side and a dark side, right? So the bright side is freedom, women, all of that. The dark side is like, okay, now you got all these kids in different households. That takes a lot of resources, not just money. Because Nick's got some money, right? He makes a lot of money. But time, everybody's got the same amount of time, right? And if you've got multiple kids in multiple houses, then your ability to, what do they call it? Not kill two birds with one stone, but to kind of accomplish more than one thing at one time is minimal. Like you got four, like I got all my kids, my kids that are minors are in the same house. So I can say, hey, all of y'all, let's all go to the park together. But if I got one over here and one over here and one over there, then I got to go to each house and spend time. And I got to go do my TV show.
And
that's a lot.
And that's just if they all live in the same city, right? Like Nick's in between, I imagine, Atlanta, LA, New York, because he's an actor, he's an entrepreneur, he does these different things. He was doing some stuff at Howard, which is in DC. So that's just us imagining they all live in LA or something like that. But or they all live in Atlanta, right? We're out now to shot. But imagine if one lives in Atlanta and one lives in New York and two of them live in LA. And it's like, yeah, it's hard to gather them all up when you're driving down the street and going to different houses. You're going 2,000 and 3,000 miles away. I imagine. I mean, it's almost impossible, right? Now, luckily for him, 4 of them are infants, right? They were born the last year, so you got a little ways before they get bigger. But you do have 3 that are older than 1 year old or a few months, so it can definitely be tough. I imagine it's really tough.
Yeah, well, by the way, I'm speaking to Jeff Licey Jr. from the Black Boss Channel. And we're talking about Nick Cannon and his many babies mamas. I think Nick has about 7 kids. He was on Breakfast Club today. And I think he had a bunch of kids in the same year, which was really interesting to observe. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, hit the share, hit the subscribe button. As you know, on this platform, our goals should become more intelligent. And on Wednesday nights, we do a book club where I'm reading Dr. Claude Anderson's book called Black Labor, White Wealth. We're reading it together and I'm analyzing it and breaking it down for you. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, powernomics, stuff like that, you can join the book club for free at blackkeystogreatness.com. You can also get free access to the life class I put together. So here's what's interesting, man, right? So Nick is about 38 years old. And I'm gonna put myself in his shoes, for a minute. And here's what I'm thinking, and he could be feeling, right, is okay, I'm Nick Cannon, right? I'm on TV. I make a lot of money. I have, lots of women who will sign up for whatever I ask them to sign up for. That comes with fame. Even I've seen some of that, and I'm not nearly as famous as Nick Cannon, but I've seen where women will literally let you do whatever you want to do because, there's a tradition that the king gets the spoils. When you win a championship, in the NBA, you're gonna get access to things that the guy in second place might not get access to, right? It comes with the territory. But it's kind of interesting because there was a movie I watched a long time ago, and I think I might have told you about this. It was about a man who got everything he wanted. He got everything. He got all the women he wanted, all the money he wanted. He had all the power he wanted. He could just look at a woman and get her to sleep with him, whatever. Like he could do whatever he wanted to do. And it kind of like rotted his soul a little bit. And then he started seeing the dark side of what it feels like to have everything you want. It's a little bit like like if you're a drug addict and who says, I like cocaine, so I want to have all the coke I can take, like right by the bed, because you Scarface, you got all this, you got a big bucket of coke, or whatever, right? But then there's a point where you just kind of hit like this peak or this point where you can't be satiated anymore. Nothing makes you happy anymore. And I think that's why certain celebrities get depressed because they're like, man, I've had all the women. I had the cars. I had the houses. I go on vacation every week. I got all the money. I need a higher purpose. Right. And so I wonder if when you're talking about sort of having people bowing for you and letting you do whatever you want to do, I'm wondering how that plays out like long term. And then also I wonder, if this is a delicate situation. I can't remember the name of the movie, blank. I'm gonna go look it up. I keep forgetting the name of it, but it's a really good movie. It's from the guy that wrote it wrote the original story. Is a guy named Faust. It was like what they call a Faustian tragedy. And but anyway, with Nick, I think about like, okay, so you got the women, you got the kids, your seed is planted. That's a delicate situation. It's real delicate because it's going to take a lot of money to maintain that. Like if and it makes me think about, remember a couple months ago when Nick was he got in trouble with the Jews for what he said about whatever with Professor Griff. And y'all remember that? Give me a yes or no if you remember that, when Nick was apologizing and then he apologized again and again and again. And that came off to me like a Negro that needed his job. Like, oh shit, if I lose my job, I am fucked. And that's true. Child support ain't cheap. For the average dude, it costs $250,000 to raise one child. Hey, so you got 7, and then for Nick Cannon, it's probably 10 times that much because the more you make, the more they take. right? And so I'm really thinking about this and thinking, man, I hope that every baby's mama you got is in line, because if one or two of them gets out of line and starts going crazy, that can mess up your whole situation. Because a woman can a vengeful woman can turn your kids against you. Guys don't understand it, but guys, some guys know that. You've seen that. Men, a lot of black men are victims of parental alienation. They just don't talk about it. But then also, if his money ever gets cut, like let's say that he says, you know what, screw these people in Hollywood, I'm gonna be Mr. Independent, blah blah blah. They're gonna be like, okay, yeah, but before you made 15 million a year, now you're making a couple $100,000 a year. That's not gonna, we didn't sign up for that. We didn't sign up for the broke Nick Cannon. We signed up for the rich Nick Cannon, and that's when things start getting out of line. What are your thoughts on any of that I just said?
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, like you said, because at some point, while now it's going to end, right? And I imagine that Cannon's good with his money, but I don't know what he is, right? Like, I don't know what his financial situation is looking like, and the fact that you continue to be fruitful and multiply, then that's going to cut into that no matter what, right? Like, so no matter how you slice it, and like you said, and that's if you have the what we call the good parental mothers, mother of your children, and not the baby mamas, right? The ones that act like that. But imagine if, like you said, they decide to get out of line because the checks aren't clearing. You aren't being as nice to their kid as the other kids. You're not buying them the same kind of stuff you buying the other kids. And my child feels neglected because we live in New York and you live in LA or whatever. Anything can pop up. Or just today I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, so I don't want you to come near our child. Just make sure those checks clear. Like you subjugate yourself to that by times 5 when you have 5 different women. And one other thing that I really find interesting, Doc, and I want to get your take on this, is that in this day and age of the internet, we're seeing a lot of these guys who preach don't ever date women with children, stay away from the baby's mamas and all of this stuff. And so Nick can ultimately only, even if he believes in marriage, don't believe in marriage, whatever, he can ultimately only be with one of these women, right? So 4 other of the women or 5 of the other women are going to be baby's mamas, right? That are going to be, and I imagine they're fairly young because they're having children, and they're going to want to, at some point, I imagine, want to settle down with someone. Well, in this day and age, when you get guys out there that's preaching, don't ever settle with a baby's mama or whoever, especially when the baby daddy is Nick Cannon, right? I feel like that just hurts the women, right? That's going to hurt the women in the long run because there's a lot of guys who are eating up this internet stuff and don't want to be a simp, right? And they're going to stay far, far away from this woman. So it can be a beautiful thing. Everything can work, peaches and cream, and the women can find their next husbands and all of this stuff. Or it could be a total disaster on the back end if it falls the way it possibly could fall. What's your thoughts on that?
Everything's always wonderful when the sex is good. When everybody's having orgasms, then everybody loves each other. But when reality sets in and you're trying to actually deal with the day-to-day fundamentals of raising children in a complicated world, it can get real messy real quick. Nick is a guy who comes off as somebody that carries, a certain amount of alpha energy where he's marking his territory, right? These are my 5 women, these are my children, blah blah blah. And the thing is that these women are gonna have their own lives, right? They're gonna date other men. Guys are gonna come around that space. And that would be interesting. Not that I really care one way or the other, but just as a thought experiment, I wonder how he feels when he does come to the house of some woman where he's sending her $100,000 a month. Because that's where the child support gets to that level when you're making Nick Cannon money. Like you're literally talking about paying several women $100,000 a month. And not to say you can't afford it, but you have to maintain that, right? And so you paying $100,000 a month. You bought the mansion that she's living in. Y'all hear me? Pay attention now. So you paid for the mansion, the sports car in the driveway. You paid for that. But this other dude is the one who's up in the bed with your woman. That's gonna make some guys feel a certain way. Some people say that's why OJ's wife is no longer with us, right? Now, mind you, OJ has a whole different story, but come on now, y'all know OJ could have did it. He might not have done it, but some other man's driving that sports car you paid for, and sleeping in that bed that you paid for, and living in that house that you paid for. that's going to make a lot of men, especially a man with that, again, that alpha energy. Like, this is my territory. I wonder if it takes a lot. Like, you have to have a lot of patience as a man to handle that. And then somebody's mentioned this too. We didn't talk about that. Just STDs. Like, people act like STDs don't. Everybody's scared of COVID, but ain't nobody talking about stuff like HIV, right? That stuff, that virus is out there too, and it's mutated about 80,000 times, and there's no vaccine for that, from what I understand. So I think ultimately it creates like a interesting situation. I'm not going to say it's a bad situation, right? I'm not here to judge it, right? Because I can also say, that traditional model that people critique, marriage, one man, one woman. We've seen a lot of cases where that's broken down too. And to me, it ultimately seems like it comes down to, what do you want for your life, and what are you ready to sacrifice for? What are you ready to sacrifice and maintain? If you choose to get married, like I chose to get married, I went and read entire books on how to maintain my shit. Like, I was like, okay, this is the route I'm gonna go. It's like playing football, right? You choose to run a West Coast offense, you better run it right. Or you could run a different kind of offense. Either, whatever you pick, you got to execute properly or it won't work, right? Any offense executed poorly will fail. So any life situation you set up, executed poorly, is going to fail. That can be either from the wrong strategy, the wrong leadership, or bad personnel. So you got a pretty broad strategy. You got a pretty wide open offense. You got a Nick with 5 babies mamas, right? So it's not the husband-wife model, but it's 5 babies mamas, 5 kids, millions of dollars. Other dudes, like, these are beautiful women. They're gonna be getting hit on by other dudes all the time. Other men are swirling in that space. Other women, other people. That's complicated. That's complex. Jeff, I'm gonna let you respond to that. I'm gonna actually run to the bathroom while you respond, so I'm gonna make you full screen. I'll be right back. Go ahead and share your thoughts
So
on that.
what's so important about what you said is the fact that there are a bunch of different people that are going to be running in the circle of these women, right? So when you have a 4 or 5, different baby mamas, you talk about all of those moving parts. A lot of that you can't control. Like, once you allow that to come about, and you spread you be fruitful and multiply, you can't control what's going on and who's in and out of the lives of these children. And that can at some point sometimes be dangerous, right? Like, sometimes you don't want your kids hanging around in certain situations. It reminds me of this show that's on Netflix, Mike Epps and Wanda Sykes show. It's called The Upshaws, right? And for those in the chat who have ever seen it, in The Upshaws, you have the guy Benny, Mike Epps' character, and he has his family unit, right? That he kind of structured. I mean, he's not the best guy, but he has his unit that's pretty structured. And then you have his son, who he had, when him and his wife had separated or whatever. But the structure over in that household is totally different, right? It's so chaotic and it's so crazy that he's like, man, I need my son to be over here, because they're allowing him to shoot dice, they're allowing him to drink, they're allowing him to do all this crazy stuff, and I can't keep my eye on him when he's over there. Right now, in Nick's case, his kids are pretty young, right? So he don't have to worry about that now. But in 10 years, in 15 years, you can't. I mean, you almost create some sort of formal resistance, especially if your child is in a totally different state. And we've seen celebrities throughout the years who have had these children, a bunch of different children, and they grew up to hate their dads, right? They grew up to hate whoever their parent is. It's because they felt like they never got the chance to spend the time with them. And like you said, Nick has a very successful show as far as rating goes and all these different things. And while now, and he still wants to go out and make his bread. His bread is on his feet. What he does in the time that he has to dedicate to his craft, which is, I'm sure, a bunch of hours, right? So when you do that, that means your time away from your family, intermediate or distant, is going to be cut. And especially, it's going to be cut even more if they live 3,000 miles away, right? And then when you have different babies' mamas, you can't stop them from bringing their friends or their family or whoever around your kid, and that could potentially be dangerous. So there's a bunch of factors out there, underlying factors we don't think about, like you said, when we're having sex and creating these babies, that sometimes can come back to bite you.
Yeah. Let me say this. And everybody, please hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. I'm talking to Jeff Lightsey Jr. from the blackbosschannel.com, and we're talking about this thing with Nick Cannon and all the kids. And the reason I wanted to talk about this, some people may wonder, if you're a financial guy, why would you talk about something like this? And well, the thing is, this is not celebrity gossip. This is really sort of jumping into a public conversation. It was on the Breakfast Club, and it's a public conversation where we openly talk about family structure. Family is directly related to wealth. I've explained that to you guys a million times. You can't build wealth without families. The part of the reason the black community loses over $1 trillion a year in wealth is because our families are all messed up. When your families are all over the place and you got babies, mamas, and babies, daddies, and broken children and emotional trauma everywhere, you can't build wealth off that because wealth is a higher vibrational objective. You can't operate on the higher frequency if you can't get past the lower frequency. You can't get to the third floor if you can't even get off the first floor. You can't play powernomics if you stuck playing struggle-nomics. So if you want to know why I'm talking about this, is not because I feel like I have any right to judge Nick's life. I'm not judging his life. It's not because I give a damn about celebrity gossip. It's because this is a public conversation, and I encourage all of us as black people to make our public conversations more intelligent so we can really talk about what's going to be best for these damn kids. Because all of y'all, how many of you in here got children? How many of you, give me a yes or no in the chat if you have kids. Everybody who has a child, raise your hand. So here's the deal. I found that raising children is a science in itself. I think it's something that none of us gets right. It's something that smart people study so you can make sure you don't traumatize your kids. A lot of you have been traumatized. Raise your hand if you've been traumatized by your parents. And I bet you that if you were traumatized by your parents, they probably didn't even know they were traumatizing you at the time. All they were doing was living their life. You know, daddy's a Rolling Stone. My daddy was a Rolling Stone. My daddy, damn near left me out. Just anything could have happened to me. I could have got molested. I could have got sold into child slavery in Mexico. I could have, a lot of terrible things could have happened to me because my daddy wasn't there. So one of the things that's interesting is, and this is the area where I would probably, if I was talking to Nick, I would probably challenge him a little bit. I get part of what he's doing and why. I get part of it, right? Especially at 38, which to me, 38 is young. For you, it's older. So it's like in the middle between us. But it's like I get it, right? Everybody likes sex. Everybody likes pretty girls. Fame and fortune comes with a lot of spoils. It ain't no drama, because you ain't got you got the kids everywhere. So you ain't got to babysit. I thought about having more kids, but the only thing that stopped me was I was like, man, I don't want to change diapers and all that stuff. So I get that. I completely get that. The challenge with that, though, is when he gets maybe like 15 years down the line, and let's say something terrible happens to one of his children, right? I had a cousin who was murdered by her mother's boyfriend because he was a drug addict. He was a drug addict, and she wouldn't stop crying, so he hit her in the head with a board that had a nail in it, and she died. I remember being in the hospital when she was dying. These things happen in households, where the father's not there to protect the child. There are whole studies that show that children who do not have their fathers around are far more likely, like 500-600% more likely to be abused. They're much more likely to end up in terrible situations, to be traumatized in many ways. Because I don't care. I say at least 7-8 times out of 10, especially in this environment that we live in now, that man, that woman, that lady's boyfriend ain't gonna love your child the way you will. He don't give a shit, especially in this environment where we got this whole anti-baby mama shit going on, where you got the whole so-called manosphere. This ain't no manosphere. I mean, I don't approve of any of that nonsense. When you're talking down on black women, get out of here with that stuff, right? But you got this whole group of people that are saying, baby mamas ain't shit. Your children ain't shit. But they're going to show up for the vagina. They're going to show up for the sex, right? So think about this, ladies. Pay attention now. You got a man who's only showing up because he's interested in what you have between your legs. That he cares nothing about your children. He feels like he's a simp if he buys your 2-year-old child a Happy Meal. That's the environment that you're dealing with, right? And so the reality is that in that environment, if I didn't have any more kids after I had my daughter, but if I had another child right now, a newborn child, that child's gonna be in my house all the time under my protection. I'm not letting no other dude around my child at all. Period. Now, if me and Alicia had a baby, I would just tell her, like, look, don't try to divorce me, because if you leave, I'm going with you. Because you ain't taking my kids down somewhere where only God knows who. I mean, you don't know who you letting into your bed. Do you know how many single mothers have dated dudes that were doing stuff to their kids and they had no idea? I know cops. They tell me stories. And this is the kind of reality, the real stuff that nobody talks about. So I'm not sitting there saying to Nick that you're wrong because you should get married because only a good marriage. I don't care about that. I mean, that's fine. Whatever, do what you want to do. But when you talk about protecting those babies, it's deeper than just like I fertilized your mom and you and your mom are good over there, and I'm gonna go and do my TV shows and fertilize some other women and have my seed spread out everywhere. It could work out for him, or it could turn real deadly, real bad, real fast. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you're right. And like you said, the chances, the percentages, knock on wood, we hope everybody is a good person and does everything by the book and would never touch a child or never do any of these things. But we know these things exist, right? Like we know, like you just pointed out several real life examples. And when you have a multiple of this, your chances only go up. Right. So if it's just one child in a different household, it's like, oh, okay, like the chances are pretty slim. But when you have 2, 3, 4, 5 and all over the country, right? Like not just all over one city, all over the country, those chances go up exponentially because now we're talking about 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 10 different families or different groups of people around your children, right? And there's absolutely positively nothing you can do. There's no airplane fast enough. There's no car that can drive fast enough to stop whatever could potentially happen from happening if you're not there. Right. So like those are the games and those are the risks that you take when you decide to have all these different baby mamas all over the country with all different kinds of women.
That's a good point. So everybody, please hit the thumbs up button, share, subscribe button if you haven't done it yet. You can also subscribe to the blackbosschannel.com. That's where we have conversations for black men, among black men. And if you care about what black men think, then I hope you will subscribe. And this is Jeff Lighty Jr. And the reason I was looking away and thinking for a second, I want to ask y'all a question. I'm going to ask y'all a question. So I'd like everybody to answer this question. Give me a yes or no. Do you think that there's a chance that at least a couple of the women that Nick chose to have the babies with, do you think that money might have been a motivation? Like, if Nick Cannon, says, look, I'm going to take good care of you. I'm going to put 50 grand a month, 100 grand a month in your pocket. If you have my baby, do you think that money might have been the motive in some situations? Like, do you think any of the women could be in that category, what they call gold digger? I'm asking that question for a reason. I'd like everybody to give me an answer. Give me a yes or no if you think that there's a chance that they might be gold diggers. Okay, Christy and Corey says yes. Okay, lady says yes. Okay, Rolanda says yes. Okay, all right. So here's what I want you to kind of think about, right? When we think about a gold digger, what do you think about? Maybe you think about like a not quite a Cardi B, but not so much a deep woman, like like I know a lot of women who are not in that so-called gold digging category. It doesn't mean they can't appreciate a man that's got some resources, but money's not the first and only thing they notice, right? Especially women that have their own money, professional women or whatever, that they're a little bit deeper, not quite as superficial. So I would ask you this, and this is a question that some of y'all may disagree on, but when I think about a gold digger, I don't visualize a woman who is typically the best mother for a child, right? When I think about what a good mother means, and I encourage guys to think about that. Like, when you lay down with a woman, I would encourage you to think about that. Like, what kind of mother would this woman be in case I couldn't be in the household with my child? Is she the type of mother who would make sure my child was well educated? Is she the type of mother that would keep my child healthy? Is she the type of mother who would protect my child from bad men? Right? Is a gold digger more or less likely to protect your child from men that may not need to be around your child? Or is a gold digger so blinded by the money that she'll let some slick talking dude come up in the house because he bought a Gucci bag, and because I know a lot of guys who can buy a lot of Gucci bags, and some of those guys are not men I would want around my teenage daughter or even my son. I mean, because they raping the boys too, and so I think about that too in terms of really wondering, and I don't even know the answer to this. I mean, maybe Nick has a whole vetting process. Maybe they had to fill out a job application or something to become one of his baby's mamas. But when you're dealing with a whole pack of women that are probably going along with this because you've got all this money, that at least means one, you're gonna have to keep them happy, which is gonna be expensive. When you can't spend it, when you can't give them that money, they're gonna be unhappy. Everything, all the rules change when the money's not available. But then two, I wonder what kind of men they're going to allow around those kids, And I think that's probably the biggest threat right there is you don't know what's happening to your kids. And some people say, well, he's doing it fine. He's got the means to take care of everybody. Well, taking care of kids ain't just about money. It ain't just, I know a lot of guys that have a lot of money, whose kids hate their guts, whose kids are not taken care of, because taking care of a child is an emotional exercise in addition to a financial. The financial is just part A of about 10 different things that you have to do as a father. So what are your thoughts about that, Jeff, in terms of just, everything I just said?
Yeah, like money is definitely a factor because, like you said, um, who knows if these women have these babies with Nick if he's not Nick Cannon, right? By whatever that means, whether they, get on birth control, whether they do whatever, like they probably don't. But I guess we'll never know. And like you said, and I mentioned this earlier, money, like you said, can only cover so much, right? Like you said, there are people with plenty of money. There's plenty of celebrities who have tons of money, more than Nick, who kids hate their guts. I mean, for one person I think of that comes to mind instantly is 50 Cent, right? 50 Cent is one of the biggest people on television. He was a huge rap star. He does all of this stuff, and he's very, very well known. Had the vitamin water deal that made him $150 million or whatever. So he's got several hundreds of millions of dollars. But his oldest son, I want to say, it's probably in his 20s now, right? Mid-20s, maybe late 20s, hates 50 Cent to death. Like he hates his father for multiple reasons. Yeah, but hates his father for multiple reasons. The thing that pops up in my mind, another thing is the Dr. Dre thing. I don't know if you saw that. Dr. Dre has like almost a 40-year-old daughter who's like homeless and basically is blaming it on her dad, who's supposed to be like a billionaire, right? So these are, children of celebrities who have even more money than Nick and have, means to greater things than Nick Cannon, who children do not like them, whose children, in 50 Cent's case, probably, hates them. Like, you know what I mean? So that, like you said, can only equate to so much. So it just, every situation is different. I just wish Nick the best, but you are playing with fire when you do decide to do something like this. I'm curious to all of these children were born within the last, especially the 4 that were born within the last year. I wonder if that has anything to do with what took place with Nick over the last year, which was he was publicly humiliated by the Jewish community, right? Like he was forced to do something he probably didn't want to do. His show got taken away from him and he tried to fight and get that back now and then giving it back to him. But what did it cost? It cost him his dignity in a lot of ways, right? Like he had to go on an apology tour like I don't think we've ever seen before. I mean, the way Nick Cannon, he met with rabbis and he put the Jewish people on his show, and it was like, what the hell is going on? Like what? Seriously, like the Snoop Dogg apology tour was one thing when we saw him, on the Red Table Talk, because of what he said to Gayle King. That was one thing, but they took Nick to the damn woodshed when it came to whatever he said about the Jews. And maybe that was a blow to his ego. And so maybe smashing a few women and having a few babies along the way was an ego booster. I don't know. Like, who knows what was going on through Nick's head over the last year? But that is also something to think about when you're a public figure and you're publicly humiliated, right? And everything seemed to be taken from him, right? His Masked Singer thing and his America's Got Talent thing. And then obviously his Pride and Joy, his show Wild and Out, was all snatched from him by Viacom. Viacom said, nah, dude, because they probably got some people of that descent up at the top of their leaderboard. And as soon as he said whatever he said, they snatched it all away from him. So maybe that was a way to boost his ego a bit over the last year.
Well, and by the way, everybody, I'm talking to Jeff Lightsey Jr. from the Black Boss Channel, and we're talking about Nick Cannon and all those babies' mamas he was talking about today on the Breakfast Club, and that was a good That's a good conversation to have because we know families connected to wealth, and I thought it would be a good opportunity for us to really talk about how family management is the first step toward being able to accomplish anything in your life, and that's why we're talking about it. Hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done it yet. Also, there's an audio version of this podcast that you can find at the drboycebreakdown.com. It's also on Spotify and Apple and a lot of other places, so feel free to check that out. One of the things you talked about, you hit a lot of good stuff that I thought was really interesting when you talked about Nick being emasculated last year. I mean, which I thought was terrible. I mean, now the baby is the latest, right? He's being made to look like a baby. And Nick was also really humiliated. And when I saw Nick's emasculation, you think about this kind of following up that public humiliation he went through. It reminds me of something my father said a long time ago. This is my father that raised me, not my biological father, but the one that I love, the one that raised me. He said that, back in the day, there was a time when a black man didn't have no power. The only power he had was his penis. And so he talked about, men that will, they will go out and be Rolling Stones and get with a bunch of women because they feel emasculated in another area of their life. So maybe for Nick, because he's, they made him look like a bitch. I ain't gonna lie. He looked really sad and pathetic, and I feel bad for him. And I was like, man, wow, bro, you're really, they got you really licking the floor right now. Like, you're looking pretty pathetic. And it was kind of and it's like, I hate saying it like that, but that's what it was, a very bad look. And it's like, you're right. I mean, I think that Nick is a proud guy. He's a smart guy, and I think he sees himself as a strong guy, but they caught him in a position of weakness. For whatever reason, there was something behind the scenes happening. There was some lever that was pulled that he felt that pressure. Because I've had such similar situations. I remember when Bill O'Reilly was attacking me a long time ago on Fox News, and they were threatening to take my job away at Syracuse. And the thing that factored in the most in terms of whether I told him to kiss my black ass or not was based really on my economic situation. If I had, 8 babies mamas to pay for and, $100,000 worth of bills every month, it would be much harder to take a stand than if if you're kind of ready. Like you kind of, I think staying ready for battle is very important for people that want to go to battle. I mean, sometimes it's just, it doesn't make sense, but I always kind of thought about that. So I think that with Nick, I do see some of that. Also with Nick, you were talking earlier about 50 Cent and Dr. Dre and what happened with their sons. And I thought that was a good point you made about how having money does not guarantee that your children are going to like you. I will tell you, I will give you the Dr. Boyce theory. In fact, here's a picture of 50 Cent and his son. I found his son looks just like him. It's kind of crazy. Here's the image. You see him right there. He looks like 25 Cent. And so so anyway, 50 Cent has the son, that has really hurt him. I mean, really, like, I hate my father, like, to the point where I'm seeking to destroy him. And I think that's a special kind of hatred. Like, that goes beyond just, I don't like my daddy. That is, I'm going to seek out my daddy and ruin him. And what I really see there is I see something where it's like maybe a transference of maybe some pain he's felt from maybe watching his mother feel hurt by him. Like, I think that kids are defensive of their mothers. And I don't know exactly whose fault it was. I don't think we can assess blame, but I have seen scenarios where there are clear cases of parental alienation. And I don't know if anybody's heard about parental alienation before, but that's where the mother, through her own pain, uses the power of the mother to turn the child against the father. And so I don't know if anybody's ever seen that. If you've ever seen that happen, it happens a lot. Nobody talks, talks about it. But I really wondered if this was a form of abuse where, you get a mother who, instead of realizing that the relationship with the man was between her and that man, it wasn't between the child, ain't got nothing to do with, except the baby was the product of it. But your pain, your disappointment in him as your boyfriend or husband or whatever, that shouldn't translate to how you tell your child to feel about their father. But you have cases where mothers who are undisciplined, who just want to get revenge on the father, will turn the child against the father by saying things in front of the child that shouldn't be said, saying things to the child about their father that are not true, or maybe they are true. But it's up to the child to form their own perspective on their parent, not you. And so by the time the father shows up, the child has been so poisoned against him that there's nothing he can do to be the good. Like, everything he says and does is going to make him the bad guy, because the child has decided, I'm picking sides. And because I'm going to pick the side of my mother, because she's the one sitting over crying in the corner and can't move on with her life because daddy's gone. So I hate daddy too. I hate daddy too because I'm loyal to my mother. In fact, there are some cases where kids get so badly entrenched in that, so badly indoctrinated, that they will feel guilty if they go and even enjoy spending time with their father. Like, this is real. This is a real thing. And nobody talks about it, but it's very real. And so going back to Nick Cannon, that's another risk. When you have these kids with different women, you're at risk of having, I'm sorry, but I believe that there's no greater force that can impact the mind of a child than the voice of his or her mother. The mother is the leading factor and whether a child is going to respect the father or not. Like people don't know this, but I actually have several babies mamas, but I just didn't make babies with them. I have babies mamas, I really do. And what does that mean? Well, I have one biological child, but I got 3 kids that are in my house. They would call them stepchildren, but no, they mine now. They under my domain now. So these are my kids that are in my house. And then I also have godchildren that I mentor, picked up along the way, and I love them like they're my own. I love mentoring and being there for young Black people and young children, and it's just something that has been very fulfilling for me.
I'm a testament. I'm not a godchild, but I'm a testament for sure.
There we go. And people in the chat were even saying that you and I look alike. so I haven't talked to your mom about being a baby's mama, but maybe we should go along with it because I love you like a son, man. You're a great kid. I'm very proud of you. But so here's the thing, right? So check this out. Here's what I figured out a long time ago. This is something I'm going to share, and maybe it'll help somebody. Feel free to ignore it if it doesn't help you. If this is, I think, guys, if you get with a woman, I think that the thing you want to pay attention to is, how important does the mother feel that the father's role is in raising the child? How is she? The thing that I notice is that my guy kids that really respect me, their respect is merely a transference of the energy they got from their mother. And so what I mean by that is if the mother respects me, then the kids respect me. If the mother says, oh, y'all listen to Boyce, do what Boyce says, the kids are right on it. Okay. Well, Boyce said this. All right, so I'm going to do it, right? I get that father respect. But if that's not there, then the respect is not there. Kids take cues from the mama. If the mama's the number one influence in their house, that's where they get the cue from. Well, mama don't respect him. I don't respect him. Mama thinks he's evil. I think he's evil too. But so I would encourage guys to really kind of think about it in terms of saying, okay, if I have a child with this woman, she controls the keys to that relationship in a lot of ways. And if she decides it's going to go bad, it's going to go bad. So measuring the integrity of that woman is very important. Can she have a situation where she had a baby with a guy and maybe it didn't work out, but she's mature enough to say, look, maybe I have my issues with his daddy, but I'm not going to turn my child against his daddy. I'm only going to speak highly of his father in a way that garners respect so that my child has the opportunity to gain respect for that man. Because if the mother messes up her job and is immature about it, it's not going to work. It'll create a living hell for everybody. That's my 2 cents. Jeff,
and that's very true, especially for someone who works in entertainment, right? Or someone that works in whatever space that consisted them from being gone, right? Like, so if you were just a dad, say for example, your mom can talk dirt bad about your dad, right? But if you see him every day and he comes by and he's around and you get to see him a lot, even though he's not in your household, but y'all live in the same city or same neighborhood or whatever, then it's easier for you to form that opinion. But we're talking about people like, who are we saying? Dr. Dre, Nick Cannon, 50 Cent. These are entertainers. And what do entertainers do? How do they eat? They don't eat from record companies no more. We know that. As far as them in the music businesses, they eat from going out and pushing whatever product that they're pushing. In Nick Cannon's case, it's movies and TV shows and stuff like that. 50 Cent is TV shows and it was music and going out for shows. Same with Dr. Dre. It was headphones or whatever, but they make their money by not being at home. They don't make their money behind a computer sometimes like we can, but they make their money by going out and being in front of people, when obviously COVID made things a little different, but before then and even after, once COVID kind of goes by, they make their money by being out in the public space. And so when you're out in the public space and you're not at home, that makes it that much more difficult, especially when there's 4 different homes across the country that you're trying to mend. And so, like I said, you have to be lucky almost or cognizant or thoughtful when you're choosing these babies mamas, because if you choose the wrong one, then it could screw up everything before you even get a chance to be a good dad or be a good father or be a good person. You can literally destroy it because, like you said, that connection with your mother, especially when your mother's there for you, she provides for you. You were literally connected, right? You came from her, out of her. So that's why that connection is so special. And so as a father, even the regular father in the house, you're almost playing catch up from day one because you will never have that bond. And so when you are an entertainer and someone who time is valuable, time is money, you're out touring or whatever, that could be, very, very dangerous. Doc, I did want to ask you, while we're talking about family structures, marriage, and babies, moms, and things, and this may be personal, but I want to know, because like you said, you get a lot of attackers for your marriage and for what you decided to do and things like that. I want to know, what was it about, Dr. Alicia? You're talking about you got married, just in the last year, right? What was it about, your wife that made you decide that now is the time to decide to get married after, all of those years of not being married?
A couple factors. One, she was always the most beautiful woman I ever met. I mean, inside and out. When I met her, I thought she was gorgeous, and we just went in a different direction at that time. I wouldn't have been ready to be married in my 20s or maybe even in my 30s. And so, it worked out in a way that was beneficial to me. The second thing is, that song, I Don't Want to Be a Player No More. I think you get to the point where, you've had a little bit of this and a little bit of that and some experiences. And I was blessed with some opportunities to engage, in a way that a healthy man would. And you get to the point where you start thinking on a higher level in terms of what you want for your life. You start realizing, like, okay, I'm trying to come out of here and leave a legacy. I'm trying to, finish in a solid way. Also, you get older. Like a lot of guys, when we're young, we don't visualize ourselves being older. And I would see older men, in their 50s or 60s that didn't make that investment early. And those would be like the guys sitting up in the nursing home that nobody's talking to and they ain't got no visitors, but yeah, he's sick and everybody's like, oh, Mr. Fred is such a nice guy. I wonder why nobody visits him. Well, I would think about it. I'd be like, well, it's probably because Mr. Fred never invested in people when he was young. He didn't invest in his kids. That's why his kids don't give a shit about him. He didn't invest in a woman. That's why ain't no woman up in the, because the men that are loved, like my father is loved. Like he's 68 years old. And I remember when he was a young player. Now he's not a young player anymore. But my mom was like right there next to him, like getting him to the doctor and taking care of him and all that. And so I thought about that too, and the other thing too is that there's something about the discipline of at that point in my life, the discipline of marriage was appealing to me because I feel like marriage is a great institution, like family. Having that, it gives you that desire to kind of do things in a more structured way. Whereas like men, when we're free, like men are a little bit like dogs a little bit. I'm gonna be honest with you. I believe men, especially when you're ambitious and you have high testosterone, which I would say that I'm in that category. I was an athlete and I'm a high achiever and go, work. The problem is that shit will kill you. Like we have a lot of things that we want to do that kill us. Like men, when men are just free to do whatever they want, you get to smoking, drinking, drugs, gambling, sleeping with all kinds of nasty ass women, eating all the wrong shit, whatever. And you can do that when you're young, but where do you think all these dead rappers come from? When they're like 45 years old, 50 years old, having heart attacks and stuff. A lot of times it's because they were trying to live young in their 40s and 50s, and it don't work no more. This ain't 1997 no more for these guys. They don't understand that. They like, oh, I'm still young. No, you're not. You're the 50-year-old now. Dr. Dre with the aneurysm. No disrespect. I'm not dissing Dr. Dre's situation, but you look at that, right? Dre is a 50-something-year-old man. He's getting letters from AARP. So you just adjust, based on what stage you're at. Like a basketball player, when LeBron was young and energetic, he played ball different for the way he plays as a 37-year-old. Now he probably takes more jump shots. He doesn't push as hard. He doesn't dive.
The defense ain't as good. That jump ain't as high. Yeah, no, it's fact.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you just got to change your game, right? So the way I play my game now, I'm not gonna play my game like I'm 32 because I'm not a fucking kid. I'm not a 32-year-old. I'm not gonna try to act like I'm not trying to compete with a 32-year-old. I'm gonna compete with the people in my age bracket. And to me, my image, my personal choice at that stage was to make what I consider to be the grown-ass man play. Like, okay, I got a family, I got a wife, I'm responsible for this. Having the wife, that helps to protect you from certain things. There's things out here, guys. See, the thing is, women are trained to watch out for certain things with men. Like they're trained to be cautious of men that they think will harm them physically or emotionally or psychologically. Men are not. Men kind of think we can just run around and do whatever we want. And the thing is that there are women out here that will set you up and tear you down in a second. like that are predatory, just like the men. And so men that let lots of women into their space, if you're not careful about that, that can be the thing that destroys you. So one of the things, so I would say I'll be the first to confess that, that being a husband is hard work sometimes. You're like, man, damn, why I got to put up with this shit? Like, damn, why can't I eat what I want? Leave me alone. I got stuff to do. So you're kind of mad about that. But then the thing is that a good wife also will like protect you from yourself, and she protects you from the world. A good one does. A good wife. A bad wife, I can't speak for that, but a good wife will do those things. Also, the other thing too that's beneficial in terms of getting with a woman that has like a little more education, is kind of doing her own thing, is it makes you smarter. So now the brain trust has, another person I can bounce ideas off of, and she can give me really good feedback. So I'm not saying that that's the best move for everybody. And I saw people kind of making fun of it or whatever. Fuck it. I mean, it comes with the territory, right? But for every 9 people that love it, there's one person who's mad about it, and that's usually more of a reflection of their unhappiness than anything. Yeah. But it's okay. Like I totally welcome that, because I think as a community we got to really talk about family structure, and not in a way where I'm telling you what to do, but in a way where you weigh all the different possibilities and you understand the environment, so you're not just sort of following the crowd and doing what everybody else is doing. Because that's the key to unhappiness in my view, following the crowd.
Yeah, no, and I had to ask you that because, like I said, your experience is unique, right? Like everybody's experience is unique, but sometimes we see the traps of a lot of what takes place in the Black community. Is a Black man has a bunch of different babies, mamas, single Black mothers who have different baby daddies and can't afford different things. And where your experience, where you were single for a long time and decided to get married at your stage of life, and that is not something that we always see, but it was beautiful because, like you said, with all the detractors and all the people that had opinions on Boyce's life and what Boyce and Dr. Alicia were doing, and how his stepkids hate him. And I mean, like I said, we could have a laundry list of videos and content that people are creating and get views and get audiences, because it's like literally a machine right now. But I wanted to ask you that because it ties into our topic with building communities, building families, and I think having an infrastructure and a settlement, like as far as a family unit, and being an example for that is inspirational for those who are smart enough to get what's going on, right? Like what you just said right now about building your family, having your unit, and being able to pass down your knowledge, pass down everything that you have to your family, to your wife, and making sure that it goes where it's supposed to go. I mean, it's what is the way it's supposed to be done. But we've seen whether it's rappers, entertainers, it's easy to bring them up because they're in the public sphere, but just even regular everyday people who don't have wives, or who don't have wills, or who don't have people to pass things down to them, and they get caught up, and it becomes literally very, very sad at the end, right? Mm-hmm. Like because they were living a lifestyle that they probably shouldn't have, and then at the end of the day, all the money's gone, everything isn't the same, and now you don't even have a wife or a family or a home to come home to because you had all these different babies, mamas, and these people don't like you anymore, and you never had a wife, so there's not someone to even comfort you if things go wrong, right? Because if at any moment things can go south for anybody, right? But to have a foundation at home is something that's beautiful, and it can keep you afloat and definitely keep you going no matter what stage of life that you're in.
Yeah, like it's like sports. You choose your offense and you execute it properly. There's not necessarily one right way to do it. I mean, it does depend on the personnel you have. So yeah, I can honestly say that if I had not connected with my wife, I might still be single. So being single has its benefits. There's no question about that. But I think having something structured around you can be beneficial. And in terms of making the most of a situation, I can firmly, honestly say, since I got married and settled down and took a different life on, I make far more money than I made when we first started dating. My health is much better. Blood pressure is down. I lost a lot of weight. People can see how much weight I lost. When she made me go and do all the reconstructive work to do, the dental stuff, which she knew that I needed to do for my health. So it's kind of like, it's one of those things where it's just like, it's a double-edged sword in the sense of, like, on one hand there's benefits, but on the other hand there's a challenge, and it reminds me of like when Richard Pryor was getting into drugs, and Jim Brown wanted to go live with him to get him off of drugs because Jim didn't take that stuff, and Richard had a choice. Like, which life do you want? Do you want the life where you can have cocaine whenever you want, or do you want to have a better life where you're healthy? But the problem is that the healthy life has a price. There's a cost. There's a amount of discipline he's going to have to take on. And sometimes we don't want the discipline. I don't blame people who don't want it. I would just say that you have to kind of decide what you want, though, because sometimes having whatever you want is what will kill you. And if people don't understand it, look around to see how many men get brought down, like have everything fall apart because they were hanging out with the wrong chicks or whatever. Look at Deshaun Watson right now. His shit's all over the place. And maybe having a wife would slow his ass down a little bit. You know what I mean? Like you ain't gonna be in so many crazy, questionable situations. I think with the spouse. And the other thing too is like when you talk about the Black community, a lot of people don't talk about this either, but their statistics show that there is a huge disparity between the numbers of marriage eligible Black men and marriage eligible Black women. The women outnumber the men tremendously, not just in terms of raw numbers, but really in terms of like marriage ready. For a man to be ready for marriage, you got to have a certain income level. You got to be ready for a certain responsibility that comes with being married. Also, you're typically people that come from a family structure where marriage is looked at in a favorable light, they're more likely to want to do it. Like a guy whose daddy was never there for him, unfortunately, sometimes he thinks, well, then that means I ain't got to be there for nobody either. I ain't got to do nothing, And so like I learned about marriage from watching my father, right? Maybe if I hadn't seen that, I wouldn't have thought of it as something I wanted to do, right? So effectively, it's created this weird situation where the women sometimes are accepting things they might not normally accept because the numbers are kind of off balance like that. And also, when you talk about making the commitment for a relationship, some people just can't do it. Like I understand why people don't want to date a woman with kids. I kind of get that because if your money ain't right, you can't afford those kids. Like you don't want to bite off more than you can chew. So if you're already worried about how you're going to pay your own bills, how are you going to pay bills for other people? And when I got married and Alicia had kids, the money part didn't bother me because it's not a big deal. But if I was broke, maybe it would be a big deal, right? So I completely hear it. Like when people are like, "Yeah, why would you marry a woman with all them with kids and all that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I guess if I was broke, I probably would feel that way."
I was about to say because they broke boys tell them, man, you gotta get your money up if you go marry a woman with kids. But
yeah,
that makes complete sense. And I also think that the looking at your parent structure made you value marriage more. Would you say? Because to wait that long, and to never do it before, right? Mm-hmm. To never do it before makes me think that you valued it a lot more than some people. Because some people see marriage as like, oh, it don't work. Drop this wife, go get another one, like Steve Harvey, right? You got 3 and 4 or 5 different marriages. It's like, what did it ever matter, right? So it's like, no, it seems like you definitely valued it. Like, I'm gonna do this one and done, right? Like, am I wrong when I say that?
No, you're right. I mean, I kind of see getting married at 40 something as like I kind of skipped my first divorce. Most of my friends that got married in their 20s, they got divorced by about 35, and that's just the truth. Mm-hmm. I'd say 8 out of 10 of my friends that got married in their 20s were divorced by 35. So it doesn't mean you can't get married in your 20s, but I think it's harder now because social media connects people so much more, and there's so much. So many people out there telling you like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. You should be out just being free. And I'm not even knocking that. I think that's fine. But I think I would advise anybody that chooses to do it at any age to take it seriously, like be intentional about it. Don't think that your relationship's going to last on autopilot just because you're in one. Like I encourage you, like, get with somebody where you can sit down and read books together, do therapy together, really get somebody that can really coach you on how you can figure out how to get along with each other, because those tools come in handy when you get into those fights. So I think that's but I totally understand anybody's life choice. I just think it's a matter of like, don't just follow the crowd, because then you'll end up in a place you don't want to be. You don't want to be that lonely old dude who passed up 10 good women because you thought you was just supposed to be a player for life. One day you wake up and your ass is 60 years old and, and all your money's gone because of child support and everything else. And now you're old and raggedy and don't nobody really want to be around you like they used to. And you kind of might wish you had some family around you to kind of help you out. So that's all it is. But I'm not judging it anyway. I don't care what people do, man. Honestly, as long as you do what makes you happy, I'm good. So you got any last words on this, man? Any final
Oh
thoughts?
no, that was it. Like Doc said, man, do what makes you happy, but you gotta be smart, man. Because especially when it comes to marriage, you can't pretend like it's just all shits and giggles. It's serious. It's a connection, and it's even a business decision in some
Mhm.
cases. So you definitely got to be smart about that. But I believe that I'm someone who would value marriage. I definitely think it's something that that's how we continue to establish and build our families, right? Like a lot of think about it. It's a simple concept, but something a lot of people don't think about it. If I make $50,000 a year, right, and I marry a woman who makes $50,000 or $55,000 a year, now separately we make 50-55, right, but together we're over six figures. And just imagine what that can do as far as building your family and starting the next generation as far as your children or whatever, because you're not having babies mamas, you're not having child support bills, you're building your family together, and that wealth comes in. And so now your kids have a better head start than maybe that you ever did, right? If you were raised by a single mom or a single dad or whatever. So those are also just simple concepts to think about, but ones that are very, very valuable.
Yeah, I mean the thing, you know, I'm not one to judge whether somebody chooses a structured family or baby mama stuff and all that, but every study I can think of on wealth shows that single parent households have lower wealth than two parent households. Period. The lowest net worth in America is the net worth of a single black mother with children. The second lowest net worth in America is that of a single black father with a lot of babies mamas. And it's real easy to see why, because child support court will eat through all your money to the point where that the man has been depleted financially. Like he tries to, he gets to be 35, 40 years old. You got three babies mamas, but now you're trying to start a family. Well, now your wife has to share resources with three other women that you ain't dated for 10 years. Like that's a messy situation to walk into a family with. And then same thing, if you're a woman that's had children with three or four different guys, a guy that is capable financially of handling all of that is not usually going to be interested in dealing with your three crazy babies daddies. If you were sloppy with, with your selection of sex partners, right? So I think that just kind of protecting your slate, keeping your slate relatively clean and not overly messy and complicated is just good common sense. So that when you do decide you want to kind of unify with another person, you could do that in an appropriate way. And you are right. One benefit, even though marriage and family takes a lot of work, kids get on your nerves, all that. Um, there are things that me and my wife can do together that a lot of people can't do. The fact that she had her career and her money and all that, and I had my money, and we brought our money together, and then on top of that, we tag team, we share responsibilities, share resources, share everything. We go out to dinner. It's like, okay, you're going to pay for it. Okay. Or I'll pay for it this time, or you pay for it next time. We don't even have to really, honestly, we don't have to even think about it. It's like, whatever. Like, okay, it was, well, how much was that? Ooh, 100 and whatever. Oh, haha, let's go. Let's get back in. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that I think comes from planning, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like when we were in our 20s, we weren't just out acting a goddamn fool and putting ourselves in stupid ass situations. We wanted to make sure that we would be good, years down the line, and now the life we have now is a result of choices we made in our 20s that everybody did not make. Some people's lives are a mess because they were living messy when they were young. So messy living kind of always has a consequence. There's always like chickens always come home to roost. There's always a price to pay. So I just encourage people not to live messy. But that's it, everybody. I want everybody to follow Jeff Lightsey Jr. His Instagram is jlightsey7, and there's his name. So if you look up jlightsey7 on Instagram, you can follow Jeff. And also the All Black National Convention. Jeff is going to be invited there along with a lot of other people. That's going to happen at the end of October, and it's going to be at the Omni Hotel. It's a beautiful hotel. It's great for singles and family, and we're going to do a lot of stuff, breakout sessions on everything from crypto to real estate to how to buy a black-owned hotel, investing clubs, all that. Plus, we're going to talk about politics. We're going to challenge the hip hop music industry. We're going to talk about reparations. We got panels on all that. And we're also going to have things like speed dating, because Alicia brought it to my attention that there are a lot of B1 people who are looking for other intelligent Black people to date. So we are going to have speed dating, and also we're going to have speed networking, so you can find people that you can date in a business capacity, people that will make good business partners and investment club members and things like that. So we're going to do a lot of really cool stuff. It's going to be the end of October, last weekend of October in Orlando, Florida. You can actually get your discounted hotel at abnchotel.com. If you want to go ahead and lock in your hotel now, we got them to drop the rate by $100 a night. So just go to abnchotel.com. If you haven't done that yet, feel free to take a look. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Thanks a lot, Jeff. It was great talking to you, man. All right. And shout out, peace out to Nick Cannon and his family. And this is not meant to beat up on him or anything like that. We just wanted to make this into a conversation topic because we figured we could help some people by getting you to think carefully about the steps you make. Because remember, bosses and successful people play chess. They don't play checkers. So don't be playing checkers with the stupid people. Play chess with the smart people. That's how you get to the top. So take care, everybody. God bless you. And see you later. Be good. Peace.